Hello, this is Darrell Castle with today's Castle Report. This is Friday, the 27th day of February in the year of our Lord 2026. I will be talking about the State of the Union address delivered last Tuesday by President Donald Trump. I will comment on a few of the things he said, but just a few, and on the reaction of his opponents to those things. Then I will do what I'm often asked to do, and that is to give a constitutional response to the speech. The president spoke for almost 2 hours, the longest speech in State of the Union history. He spoke mostly about the achievements of his second term as he saw them, and he mentioned that America is entering a golden age. He emphasized patriotism and heroes. He invited many heroes, as he saw them at least, to the speech, including the gold medal winning men's Olympic hockey team. According to the reports I've seen, more than 70 Democrats chose not to attend the speech, but most of them did attend, and they exercised their choice, which was to sit and glare straight ahead or occasionally to boo him, he noticed. And he called them out repeatedly for their failure to muster even the most basic bipartisanship in moments that should have been beyond partisan politics. For example, the president invited, quote, a woman who has been through hell, end quote, her name, Anya Zaruska, whose daughter, Irana, fled war-torn Ukraine only to be murdered on a train in Charlotte, North Carolina. I did a podcast about her called A Murder in Charlotte. You might want to look that up. Yes, the killer had many past felonies, only to be released on bail from each one. When he killed Irina with a knife, the Democrats could not muster any energy to stand for her mother. That was bad. That was a bad thing, a bad moment, but not the worst moment for Democrats. He held them up for the whole country to see their worst moment, and they went for it. Quote, one of the great things about the State of the Union is how it gives Americans the chance to see clearly what their representatives really believe. So tonight, I'm inviting every legislator to join with my administration in reaffirming a fundamental principle. If you agree with this statement, then stand and show your support. The first duty of the American government is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens, end quote. Who, in good conscience, could not agree with that statement? And Republicans certainly did. They stood, they clapped, they whistled for a full 2 minutes, a raw, spontaneous reaction, but the Democrats didn't even move, not a shuffle, or even a courtesy clap, just nothing. He let that sink in for a moment, then twisted the knife, quote, isn't that a shame? You should be ashamed of yourselves not standing up, end quote. I think people noticed as post-speech polls indicated, especially since illegal immigration was the most important issue of the 2024 election. His invitation to stand was not an attack on immigrants, nor was it hateful, at least in my opinion. Instead, it was a simple invitation to endorse common sense publicly. The American people elect and pay their leaders in exchange for power and honor of election. Those leaders must prioritize the needs of their constituents. It is the most basic social contract of the American government. It's hard to see how anyone could not grasp it immediately. But apparently many Democrat leaders do not grasp it. However, I will point out that the theme transcends immigration. Whether you call it America First or you simply understand that we are all Americans, illegal immigrants, especially murderers, torturers, rapists, are not. It is or should be a basic requirement of holding office. Washington is now filled with politicians who have agendas that take priority in their minds over Americans. Yes, folks, for some it's Ukraine first. For some it's Somalia first. For others, perhaps even for the president, it's Israel first. Now, let me finalize this concept and attempt to link it to constitutional government and what that would mean. My view is that anyone who thinks that there is a single group who should come ahead of Americans in the minds of office holders should not be in politics. Let them get a job in Silicon Valley, but please stay away from politics. In reference to the Constitution, I want to say a few words about Iran and what appears to be a steamrolling thing moving toward an extended war against Iran, like refusal to stand for the concept that American politicians should put the interests of Americans ahead of those of illegal immigrants. American politicians are bound by oath to the Constitution to oppose the drive to fight wars, attack other countries which have not harmed America in any way on behalf of others. This coming war is so obviously unconstitutional that I wonder if anyone in Washington even knows what it means. I will also point out that the U.S. Constitution is not enough. If that is not enough for some of our globalist neocon politicians, it is also a clear violation of the UN Charter, which the U.S. signed in 1948. The Charter forbids attacking countries which have not harmed you and are not a threat to you, but the U.S. has done that many times since 1991 especially. A nation does not have to attack to violate the Charter. Even threats and intimidation are also forbidden. The threat to Iran of "you have 10 days to comply with my demands or something very bad will happen to you" is an obvious violation of the UN Charter. The idea of, "look, I'm much stronger than you. You have something I want, so if you don't give it to me, I will take it by force," that's also an obvious violation. I oppose an attack on Iran for many reasons. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Dan Kane, apparently agrees with me. He has reportedly warned the president that an act of war against Iran carries significant risk, including a prolonged conflict with high casualties. I understand that General Kane has the president's respect, so maybe his views will prevail over Bibi's, but I doubt it. Rumors abound that on one of Bibi's 6 visits to the Trump White House, he threatened the president with what is known as the Samson option. In other words, if you don't do this thing for me, I will bring down the entire temple. By attacking Iran with nuclear weapons, there can be no reasonable doubt at this point that the coming war is for the purpose of greater Israel. If you don't believe me, I invite you to listen to Tucker Carlson's interview with U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee, conducted in Israel about a week ago. In that interview, Huckabee essentially admitted that we were fighting for greater Israel, and he said he'd be okay with that. That was fine. Back to honoring the U.S. Constitution for a moment. I've spent 37 years of my life defending the U.S. Constitution. Along with Western civilization itself, I now have no confidence that that battle can be won. In other words, folks, it appears I lost the battle, and a return to constitutional government is impossible. As you probably know, I was a presidential candidate for the Constitution Party, and I knew then that by some choice, if God lifted me up and made me president, if I was elected, it would mean great sacrifice, possibly even death. So let's look at why I feel that way. Politicians seek power to get ahead, to use the near monopoly on violence that government power has to achieve those goals. They become seekers of largesse. There are other words to describe it, but they seek largesse and they exchange that largesse for votes and for special treatment. Subsidies for certain industries are clear examples of this. The subsidies given to corn farmers require corn ethanol to be mixed with gasoline. Now the corn producers say they could not survive without that largesse, and any corn state politician who seeks to cancel it better consider a new line of work. The original ethanol requirement was to prevent global warming, they said, but the current president says global warming is a hoax. But the subsidies continue unabated. Subsidies, bailouts, welfare, giveaways, other shakedowns are not only unconstitutional, but they are also normally unnecessary and inefficient. For example, tariffs. Tariffs are essentially subsidies for selected industries paid for by price hikes on consumers. The largesse that tariffs represent are put in place to favor a select group of beneficiaries and disfavor everyone else. Over time, the largesse builds up and becomes a huge drag on the economy. I grew up as a farmer's kid. We kept pigs whose meat the pigs sacrificed to feed us through the winter. With so many piglets sucking their mama, the sow, the poor sow grows weaker and weaker. A once healthy, dynamic sow goes into decline and stagnates, but the pigs are so addicted they cannot stop sucking until their mother can no longer feed them. So I tell you, what is necessary if this empire is to be saved from the disaster that appears to be inevitable? But a word of warning, if you actually tried to do these things, you would probably not survive. Empires have come and empires have gone throughout history. They turn their money to trash by currency debasement. For example, our own currency has lost 99.9% of its value relative to gold. And yet we ask ourselves why things cost so much. Affordability crisis, they call it now, without any understanding of what actually causes it. Eventually, civil war and the struggle for remaining largesse destroys the empire. Starvation and poverty are the result. Old friend and economist Bill Bonner shares three essential things for a good beginning, and I agree with Bill on all of them, so here is his three things. Quote, number one, protect the integrity of U.S. money and the money system. Number two, do not spend more than you take in, ever. This year, revenue is projected at $4.9 trillion. Spending is projected at $2 trillion more than that. Number three, no wars, and I mean no wars, that are not purely defensive, end quote. So, this sacrificial candidate, and hopefully this president, should announce no more deficits ever, no tariffs, no sanctions, no printing money to pay the debt, no more inflation because a balanced budget is non-negotiable. To do this, first abolish the Fed immediately. You will have to cut $2 trillion in spending, and people will not take kindly to that. But rip the Band-Aid off quickly. Take your case directly to the people. Tell them, look, folks, we may be the greatest nation in the history of the world, but we are going broke. Someone has to do it. And if not me, who? If not now, when? Explain to the voters that in fiscal year 2019, the $4.9 trillion in revenue that we expect this year, back in 2019, that would have funded the entire government. And it's going to do that again. It's going to do it this year. One other thing, this all depends on taking control of the military, industrial, intelligence, security, and spy complex, so that must be done in conjunction. Remember, folks, the last president to attempt to control those things was JFK. Never fear. Just go on TV and tell the people why you're cutting $500 million from the war budget. Finally, folks, what are the chances the people of America would support a president who was determined to save his country and return to the Constitution? So close to zero, they could be termed zero. That would be my guess. At least that's the way I see it, folks. Until next time, this is Darrell Castle. Thanks for listening.